Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Gavinsky's Tutorials. Now today I'm basically going to compare the sound and the features of FAC Phazer, so Fred Anton Corvest, and the MoogerFooger Phaser. So I actually made the musical comparison part of this video earlier and posted it to Twitter. That is why this video is in portrait mode, because initially I just made it for Twitter and I decided it would be better to make it in portrait mode because a lot of people are checking Twitter on their phones. So, normally my long form videos on YouTube are always in landscape mode. So if you don't like the bars at the side, just turn your device around, right? Almost everybody's going to be watching on a phone or an iPad. So just turn your device into portrait orientation and you won't have any bars at the side. So let me just mention a couple of things first. So first thing, I've got a giveaway. So already on that Twitter video earlier, I put the details of how to win a copy of any FAC app. So any FAC app, not just Phaser on Twitter. But so now there will also be another FAC app being given away on YouTube. So that's a total of 2 different FAC apps there. And you'll find the details of how to win on YouTube in the pinned YouTube comment. And later today, I'll put up another giveaway on Insta, and that will also have a chance to win. So that means 3 winners will each win any FAC app of their choice. So yeah, make sure you follow the instructions for each platform. They're all slightly different. And you can find me on any of those platforms by clicking the links in my description or by just going to them and searching for Gavinsky's Tutorials. Okay, so that's one thing that I wanted to mention. Second thing I wanted to mention, Phazer, FAC Phazer, that is going to go up in price on the 4th of September. So currently it's $5.99 or probably £5.99 or whatever if you're in the UK. It's going to go up to $9.99 on the 4th of September. So even if you wait a couple of days to see if you have won in any of my giveaways, if you're not lucky enough to win, you'll still have a chance to buy this if you don't have it yet at the at the current price, okay, before it gets the price rise. And then just the third thing that I want to mention is well, 2 things actually here also. So what we're going to do in a minute is listen to the audio tweaking comparison of the 2 apps, right? And then after that audio comparison, I'll come back to a bit of spoken comparison, looking at each interface and yeah, leading you through them very briefly. That won't be very long, but it will be thorough. And just before we start that, I do have one more thing, and this is really important actually. So if you've been following me for any length of time, and especially if you read my pinned YouTube comments, you'll know that I really make like just such a ridiculously small amount of money from YouTube. So I'm always trying to encourage my viewers, people who like the channel, and it seems really a lot of people love the channel. I mean, I'm always getting these comments, oh, well, I love your channel, I love your music, whatever. But I get very few donations. So I opened up a new platform for donations. So I've opened a page on Buy Me a Coffee. So I'll put a link to that. So I'll put a link to just the donate page, right, where you can go and make a one-off donation. So I really do hope that if you do like the channel and if you're in a financial position to be able to afford to, that you might make a donation to express your thanks. And of course, you're free to make those donations again every so often as well. I do have a couple of really kind people who don't just donate once, but they donate to me maybe every few months or something like that. And it's really amazing. I appreciate those people. There's a second link that I'll put to my listings page. So on that page, I can offer things for sale. So I will add things to that page over time. But what I have put there at the moment is details of how to get a one-to-one voice or video call with me. Call it a consultation, call it a lesson, maybe even just a chat about, music making, whatever. If you're a dev, you might want to book a consultation to get my view on an app that you're working on, how it could be better, and so on. Because I have reviewed so many apps, and as you know, if you're a regular here, I've got a very critical mind, and I like to look at apps and think about how they could be better. So also for developers, that's something to offer. Um, so yeah, the links are there. And what I also wanted to do, just kind of celebrate, this kicking off, I wanted to mention some people who have supported me so far. So Peter Dragota actually supported me in another way. He couldn't use Buy Me a Coffee, contacted me, we found another way. Gave me an incredibly generous donation. Thank you so much, Peter. Really appreciate it. And then other people who have supported on Buy Me a Coffee, Dr. Rabbitfoot, Azul 3D, that is Fernando, the dev of Piano Motifs. Great to get a donation from a dev. I think devs uh, make a lot of money from me showcasing their apps, but very, very few of them have ever given me any kind of donation or anything like that. Vitor Zanoni, Roland Pyle has been a regular. He's, donated to me on PayPal a few times. Roland, really appreciate you, man. Troy Outram, thanks a lot. Generous donation, really appreciate it. And also, last but definitely not least, Greg Craw, who has also been someone who has donated to me a few times. So thanks a lot, guys. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. I mean that very seriously from the bottom of my heart. It really makes a difference to my life. So without further ado, let's go into the tweaking comparison demo. First, you'll hear me playing around with FAC Phazer. Then we'll switch over to the MoogerFooger Phaser. And then remember, when that finishes, this video will not be finished because that's when I'll come back and do a little bit of a spoken comparison and just make a few extra points. Okay, so let's move on to the musical tweaking comparison demo now. Okay, so let's move on to the third part of the video where I actually go through these, look at their interfaces, and go through some of the features and talk about some things I like about each one, and make a few suggestions as well, maybe. I'll be interested to hear from you as well. You can write something in the comments about which one you prefer in terms of sound and in terms of interface, etc. Now, so I'm not going to demo anything here audio-wise, right? Because if you've watched the part that came before, you've already heard that. I want to keep this video short. So if we look at the FAC Phazer, one of the things that I really like about these apps is that they're very flexible in resizing. So yeah, I mean, sure, we do have some black space around things, but that's really nice, okay, that we can have this vertical stacking or horizontal stacking. And when you put it in that horizontal view, you can really get it, you know, pretty small. So if you're someone like me who likes working in AUM and likes to at times have a whole bunch of different things open that you might want to tweak, then, you know, things like resizing really matter, actually. So yeah, that's one of the great things about Phaser, and it beats the MoogerFooger one in that department. Although the MoogerFooger, I like that it can be opened up really large. You know, that is good for knob tweaking. So yeah, anyway, let's go back to FAC Phazer here. So just looking at a few of the controls. So we've got our speed and depth controls here. Now, one really cool feature is that if we have it on a sync time, you can see here, by the way, right, you see the way that is flashing? That's because it won't make any change until the next bar starts. That's a really nice feature. So let's say here it's on synced mode, and let's say I speed it up a little bit. So you see there it was flashing and it won't actually change the time until the next bar has started. Really cool feature. I love that. Now here is one of the areas where FAC Phazer definitely beats the MoogerFooger Phaser because it has so many different LFO types. If we look at the MoogerFooger Phaser, we've just got LFO, that's it. There's absolutely no control whatsoever over waveform shape. So FAC Phazer is hands down winner in that area of comparison. Now then here, we've got our frequency, feedback, and spread amounts. And again, if you watched the demo, you will have seen those in action, so I really don't need to explain them to you. And you'll also have noticed that there are a few different models here, basically Phaser models that you can choose from. And then here, something that isn't maybe that obvious is that you can change this value. And it looks a bit like a button, so you might kind of want to click on it and nothing happens. But actually, if we drag up and down, we can see that we can change the number of stages. Now, this is not going to be a tutorial on phasers or anything like that. But one thing I will mention is if you want to learn about phasers, honestly, if you go into any of the MoogerFooger apps and you click on the settings button and you go to open manual, it will open the manual on the internet for you. And the manuals for all of these MoogerFooger apps are really brilliant. And this phaser one is just a fantastic introduction to phasing, explaining how phasers work and so on. It's really, really great, really great. So I would recommend reading that. Even if you don't buy the app, right, you could always just read it online. It's brilliant. Another thing you'll notice here about phaser is that you see when I'm dragging that, okay, you can see also you're getting information down here. And you see, if I drag the depth, for example, then we're also getting, the percentage here. So we've got that visual feedback, and I care about that, and a lot of users care about that. And if we go to the MoogerFooger Phaser, let's say I take the LFO rate, and let's say I turn sync off. Well, I'm not, let's say I turn sync on. I mean, here there's no visual feedback whatsoever about the time, is it an eighth or whatever? Is it dotted? Is it triplet? And so on. I find that a very strange omission. So yeah, actually, none of these MoogerFooger apps give you any visual feedback on amounts or anything like that related to any knobs in them. I think it's an area that could be improved. Okay, back to the FAC Phazer here. So one thing also that we can notice is, as well as having stuff like a bypass and output knob, it has a dry-wet control, whereas the MoogerFooger Phaser doesn't have a dry-wet control. Okay, so those are some of the things that, like a lot of the things that I pointed out there are things where I think that FAC Phazer has advantages over the MoogerFooger Phaser. Now, we're not talking about sound or anything like that. I think that's something that you'll have to make up your own mind on. But to me, though, I like the sound of both. The FAC Phazer has a very, I would describe it as, it's a cleaner sound than the MoogerFooger, but it's also pretty lush. The MoogerFooger, I think, excels in a slightly grittier and more vintage kind of sound. So they're both really nice, but in different ways. So of course, one advantage of the MoogerFooger there is that it's got the built-in drive control, right? But you could always just, you could use, for example, even the MoogerFooger saturator after the after the FAC Phaser, or any kind of saturation app or whatever, right? Okay, if you wanted to change the sound, and there's all sorts of ways you could make that sound a bit grittier. But one area where the MoogerFooger wins hands down, just no question about it, is that it has a much better preset system. You can save your user presets, and it's not the greatest preset system I've seen, but it's decent. But the FAC Phazer preset system is quite honestly subpar, because it really does not have any built-in preset system not that I can see anyway. All you can do here is choose between factory presets, and if you want to save your own presets, you're going to have to use the internal preset saving system in the host that you're using. Like here, I'm using AUM. So yeah, I mean, it's not even something, like I often say, why do more apps not have things like preset subfolders and so on? But I mean, here there's not even a system whatsoever for saving user presets. So could do better in that regard. Okay, now jumping on to the MoogerFooger. So yeah, a better preset system. Here we've got a kind of A/B button where you can just maybe set something up, jump over here, make a few changes to it, and then click again, and you'll go back to the setting before. Click here and it'll jump back to that second setting, so you can just A/B things. And here, this is a really cool feature actually, the CV control feature, but I'm not going to talk about it now because I'm going to do a detailed video, a spoken walkthrough that will cover all of the MoogerFooger apps, all 8 of them. And the CV is something I'll be going into there. And I think that a lot of people actually don't really understand how useful this can be. It's an extremely cool feature. But I'll look at that in another video, and I didn't demo it in my comparison of these today. But this is something great, and it's definitely an advantage over the FAC Phazer that it has this. But again, you'll see what I'm talking about when I make that other video. And then if we click here, we come through to a settings page. So the original hardware was mono, okay, but here we have a choice between mono and stereo. Down here, we got a link to open the manual, contact us link. That's great. You know, I've seen some devs who can be really hard to contact. Sometimes on the App Store, they don't even have a link on their page for the app to the developer website or support or anything like that. So that's really nice. And then these output modes here, these are basically different ways of dealing with the routing of the left signal and the right signal and stuff like that. You can read about it in the manual. Trying to make things fairly brief here. So I already mentioned the LFO knob, like all the other knobs, you're just going to have to use your ear, okay? So with things like a mount or whatever, you know, that's not really that much of a problem. But with rate, I do think that a lot of people would prefer to see the visual feedback. Doesn't really matter so much for the free mode, but for when sync is turned on, you would really expect to be able to see the values. And I can't think of any other app actually that has a sync mode, you know, a delay or whatever, a phaser, flanger, or whatever. I can't think of any one that does not show you the actual value. Oh, well, maybe Gauss, I think, doesn't, yeah. I also didn't like that it didn't show that. So, yeah, really, there should be visual feedback for things. People like it. Okay, down here, we just turn our LFO sync on and off. Now here, you might like this feature and you might not. So basically there's a switch. So this will control the LFO rate in hertz. So you see it can go pretty slow, 0.01 to 2.5, okay, when this is pressed, or here 1 to 250. So the good thing about this is that, you know, it allows you to dial in those small amounts pretty accurately. And, you know, the knob, especially opened up big. I mean, the knob in this is nice and big, and you feel like you've got quite a lot of control, and it's just quite nice to play with the knobs. But the disadvantage of having a switch is that you cannot go from, you can't tweak it from, like, let's say, for example, you know, 0.01. You can't tweak it from that to 250 continuously, which is, you know, something that you can do in the FAC Phazer, right? Because it doesn't have any sort of switch like that. So when you're looking at the this thing here, we can see that. Although mind you, here I notice the free speed, it only has it in percent, not in hertz. I haven't checked the manual. I don't know if it shows what the minimum and maximum speeds are there. But if we put it on sync mode, we can see that in that mode, the slowest is 8 bars. So I'm guessing this one might not be able to go as slow as the Moog one, but don't quote me on that. So yeah, anyway, that is something worth bearing in mind. Now, nice feature here is the drive control, and you will have heard me demoing that, and you'll have heard maybe in one part of the video in particular, I got a bit overzealous with the drive, and things definitely got like very gritty. But the drive can be really nice. Now, one super cool thing, and I'll tell you what, when I first read the manual, I was like, hey, this link thing sounds cool. Let me see, where is it? Went and looked at the app, couldn't see it for shit. I mean, you know, if you're a regular of this channel, you'll know that I had pretty serious issues with my eyes a few years ago. But I mean, I can see, but like honestly, this is to me pretty much invisible. I mean, especially if you're using low brightness, which a lot of people do to save their iPad battery, right? So I think that when this is turned off, it could be a bit more visible. But it's a really cool feature, this little link thing. So what it lets you do basically is, yeah, when you increase the drive amount, then the output amount will decrease and vice versa. So really nice way to add drive without, you know, getting into clipping territory or whatever. But yeah, you can also unlink it, okay, and just tune things in exactly the way you want. So that's nice. And then here we have our phaser sweep knob. Here we control whether it's 6 stage or 12 stages. So if you remember with the FAC one, we had 1 to 6 stages with control over the different phaser models. And then here in the MoogerFooger one, we've got, we can go up to 6 stage, but we don't have anything, you know, 1 stage, 2 stage, 3 stage, 4 stage, 5 stage. And then here we've got our resonance control, and here a bypass knob. Okay, so yeah, so as you can see, both apps have some features that the other lacks. Overall, to be honest, I feel that the FAC Phazer is slightly more feature-rich, apart from the CV feature in the MoogerFooger, which, as I say, I'll go over in another video and is brilliant. But particularly, I feel that you know, the lack of choice of LFO types is really disappointing here. But of course, you can use your own LFOs, and especially if you connect your LFOs up using the CV system, it's really good because you can do, you know, slow sweeps and things like that with no stepping. And again, it's something that I'll talk about when I do my walkthrough. But yeah, that's my major gripe, really. It's the only thing that I would really complain about the MoogerFooger, and that goes for a lot of the MoogerFooger apps. I feel I don't know, I mean, I'm guessing that it's just, you know, the original Phaser, it just had, you know, one LFO type, you didn't have any choice, so they didn't add it in to the plugins. But, you know, this is a plugin, it's not hardware. I just don't understand. If you think about, if we think back to the musical demo that I just did, it's so obvious how many, you know, how much creative potential is added by having things like, you know, sample and hold waveform for your LFO. or a square or whatever, rising, falling. It's just really, really useful. Like I say, I mean, most important thing really is the sound, I guess, and you can always use external LFOs, right? So not the end of the world, but I do nevertheless genuinely find it extremely surprising that there isn't more choice of LFO waveforms there. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you haven't. If you like this sort of stuff, give this video a thumbs up if you don't mind. And don't forget about the giveaway. Instructions are in the pinned comment and links to my other social media. Remember, the giveaway is also going on Twitter and later today on Instagram. And please do remember my Buy Me a Coffee link there as well. If you have the means to do so, a donation would really make my day. All right, everyone. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, which I'm pretty sure will be back to the usual portrait mode. Landscape mode, and not portrait mode. Okay, wherever you are, have a great day, great evening, whatever time zone you're in, and I'll see you in the next video. Take it easy. Cheers.